Tourette's podcast is not a medical advice show. It's a show about experiences. In the course of that, we may talk about medications or therapies or stories from the doctor's office, but don't mistake any of that for medical advice or direction. It's not. Get that only from people or places licensed or certified to give it, not from a massively fun and action-packed podcast about our life experiences, such as...
Everybody told me that this was like a kid's disorder or something, and once you become an adult, you grow out of it. And I was super bummed to find out that is completely false.
This is Tourette's podcast. I'm Ben Brown. Okay, so first thing I got to do here is course correct just a little. You remember last week I was asking what everybody might have been thinking about for Tourette Awareness Month coming up, and I said my idea was to take 1 month of Patreon support and then match that amount with my own dollars and donate the total to a specific organization. So that was an idea I had for the podcast for Tourette Awareness Month. What happened after that was a couple people reached out and said, basically, hey Ben, did it occur to you that those are donations to the podcast and that not everybody wants their donation forwarded to a place they didn't consent to? And so, yeah, I totally hadn't thought it through, and it makes complete sense. And one of you told me, at least one of you, told me not to put the donation toward anything other than the podcast. So here's what I'm going to do. I had already planned to make a personal donation to the Tourette awareness cause myself, personally, outside of the podcast. And I'm going to do that anyway, make that donation. But the Patreon support is going to remain as intended in supporting the podcast and offsetting the costs of doing it. Can't thank you enough for that. The Patreon support won't be tampered with. As such, thanks so much for tapping me on the shoulder about this, always trying to get this right, and you guys are continuously an amazing help with that. And you know how you guys are so often pointing out that people with Tourette syndrome aren't as included as they should be when it comes to, research in the direction of policy and investigation, like things that directly impact the Tourette community. It's just been a conversation that the TS community doesn't feel so included in the development of things directly focused on them. We especially hear that with adults living with TS. Well, check this out. This coming August, there's going to be a summit in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the US. The Treating Tourette Together Summit is a 2-day meeting on August 18th and 19th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it's going to bring together people living with Tourette, their families, healthcare providers, and researchers to collectively set an agenda for the next generation of research on behavioral therapies for TS. So the goal of this is to step outside traditional medical research models and to put the voices of the Tourette community at the very center of the research planning process. The Tourette Association of America has a website up now where you can learn more about the summit. That's at treatingtourettetogether.org. Head over there at your convenience, but try to make time for it so you can complete a very brief survey. Should take you less than 5 minutes. A survey to make your voice heard. And maybe think about participating in the summit. Again, that's August 18th and 19th in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the US. You can do so in person or you can do it remotely from your home. Again, Treating Tourette Together Summit. And you can learn more and get involved at treatingtourettetogether.org. And some familiar names to this podcast are also heavily involved. I'll have more to announce about that as we build up to the summit. Also had a comment in the queue from last week that I didn't get to that could kind of tie in with all this. This was in the discussion group. This comes from Stephanie. She says, the going into adulthood and treatment options, or lack thereof, for adults would be a great topic. I recently sought out a therapist for CBIT, and the response I got from everyone was, quote, we only treat children. Some of mine are worse than when I was a child, but instead of having just the few, I seem to have a menagerie of mild tics that I have rotated through my life. And that's from Stephanie, kind of pointing out the frustrations for adults, kind of being represented in treatment. Got another comment here from a listener named Jade. She says, hi, I'd be interested in hearing about habit reversal. Have you tried it? Or do you know anyone who had success with it? It seems to be really hit or miss for individuals who don't have the chronic intrusive thoughts or OCD. And that's from Jade. Jade, I have not done habit reversal, but if you, the listener, have any experience with it, please share with Jade. You can connect with her at the Tourette's Podcast discussion group on Facebook, or you can email me, tourettespodcast@gmail.com, and I'll make sure it gets to Jade. Then we'll follow up next week on the podcast. We'll talk about what came back. Okay, quick shout out to Bandrew Scott, who was a notable YouTube figure for his thorough reviews of microphones, including the one I'm speaking into now, the Electro Voice R820. You might know Bandrew from the YouTube channel called Podcastage. Okay, so this is not a commercial. There is a point to this. But with Bandrew and Podcastage, if you've been wanting to get into podcasting yourself and you have questions about the kind of microphone or other kinds of equipment that you need to buy and kind of how it works, Bandrew's YouTube page, Podcastage, is a massive resource. He's reviewed pretty much everything under the sun, all kinds of microphones and interfaces, and he does so in a very entertaining way. And subsequently, Bandrew has a big general audience, lots and lots of people. And he said some really cool things about the Tourette's podcast on the latest episode of his podcast called Bandrew Says. That's at bandrewsays.com, like Andrew, but with a B in front of it, bandrewsays.com. I had a question for him, and he answered it very generously with cool observations about this podcast and what he gets out of it as someone who doesn't have TS. And what's really important about that is that I love it when an audience outside of the Tourette community hears about this podcast, because it obviously increases the chances of them tuning in and becoming interested. And my wife had the idea the other day, thank you, Ambrose, of having a call-in segment or like a voicemail segment, maybe at the end of the episode where non-TS people can call in and pose a question, talk about their impressions of TS, just make a statement or give a reaction to something they heard on the show. I don't know. What do you think about that? I like it because that's a bridge to a broader conversation and I think better public understanding. It's a dialogue. Of course, this all depends on there being a critical mass of non-Tourette people listening. I do know they exist, but even if you're a family member of someone with TS or a friend of someone with it and you want to weigh in or ask a question to the community, just seems like a cool direction to go in adding things to the podcast and boosting awareness. Related news, there's an Instagram page now. Follow Tourette's podcast. Just look up the podcast by name. We'll be posting there and expanding the reach. And again, thanks to everybody who's given totally voluntary support to the show at patreon.com/Tourette's podcast. If you've signed up as a supporter, please let me know if it's okay to say your name here. I'd love to publicly thank you, but if you'd rather not, I totally respect that. But let me know if I can say your name. And you can send me a message to read on the show if you'd like, or just say your support of the show is in somebody's name, or, tell somebody hi, or whatever you want to do. I'm just thankful for the support. That truly, truly helps Tourette's podcast thrive. On this episode, we've got Kimmy, who, as it happens, lives just a couple towns over from me. We connected by phone. She's a talented performer on stage. She's a creator of these extremely cool items you're going to hear us talk about. This isn't a commercial either. This is just a look at her life and what she does. Kimmy's an artist. I said she's on stage, and one of the obvious quick questions is, does she tic while she's performing on stage? All that and a whole lot more right now. Here's me talking with Kimmy. Hold on, let me make sure that I'm recording. Yes, I am. Okay. So state your name and the part of the world that you live in and just kind of generally how you would introduce yourself and your day-to-day.
My name is Kimmy. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am an actor and artist and also an office administrator.
So what comes first for you? Could you talk a little bit more about your acting and sort of what you do with that?
Yeah. I'd say I guess that's kind of like my first love. But it's kind of hard, at least at this point, for me to make a living off of it. So I can't, don't have the luxury of just being an actor. But I've been acting I've wanted to be an actor since I was little. I remember watching Barney and and asking my mom, like, oh, what are those kids? And she's like, oh, they're actors. I'm like, cool, I'm going to do that. And then I guess I kind of started acting in like high school when drama classes were open to me, and I just never stopped. So
nice. Yeah. So is there anything sort of genre-wise that you lean toward in terms of stage?
Not really. I love doing musicals, but I don't have like the most amazing singing voice, so I can't always do those. But I love doing like dramas. I love getting to, cry on stage. But I love comedies and stuff too. Pretty much just acting in general.
Right.
Kind of my thing.
So you mentioned art too. Is that sort of, that's a bigger umbrella for a lot of things you do, I imagine. So I did click on the Scrambled Pegs link in your Twitter bio. Could you talk about that? Because I saw it and I think it's great.
Yeah. I have an Etsy shop called Scrambled Pegs where I make little wooden peg dolls. I can pretty much paint them to look like anything, like different characters or different people. So that takes up quite a bit of my life. It's really picked up steam in the past few years. So that's kind of like a a whole thing in itself.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
yeah, I love the Ruth Bader Ginsburg one. That's the one I remember.
Thank you. Yeah, that's like my bestseller. People really love the Ruth Bader Ginsburg stuff. I mean, I love her too, but I didn't expect it to blow up like it did.
So it's wooden pegs that you just hand paint?
Yeah. And I also dabble in customizing Funko Pops, but those take a lot longer. So
Well, so, it's a pretty it doesn't always take the same shape, but, when I talk with other Touretters, I mean, art and the sort of creative side of the brain ends up being, I'd say pretty dominant. Is that the case with you? I mean, so trying to find these commonalities, I mean, where do you kind of fall on that?
yeah, I never really thought about it being connected to Tourette's or anything.
Mhm.
I always figured I'm left-handed, so I
Mm.
always kind of hear that art correlates with that a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I used to be really good at school, and then I think I got to a certain point in high school where like you have to work harder to be good at things, and I
Yeah.
kind of just never did that part. So I fell kind of back to the middle of the pack. Probably not super great at math and science. So yeah, I guess I would say I'm definitely more on the liberal arts side of things. But
Was it because of the structured environment when it came to education? Because I think that's what trips me up. I think there are things I would probably, I would be better at or would have learned better had it not been the sort of, conventional way of, the classroom style convention of teaching kids.
yeah, I think for me, a lot of it was like I always hear this about like smarter kids growing up is like, things come more easily to you.
Yeah,
And then, so you don't really learn how to like study or work hard or like put in the work to
yeah,
learn things like, other kids may have to have done. So then when you get to the point in like high school where you can't just do things, you have to study and work. That's the part where I was like, well, I've never done that before. So I don't really know how to do it. So,
I definitely get that. I mean, I still, I think, kind of struggle with organization, and I think I fit right in when I used to work at newspapers as a reporter. It's sort of the stereotypical thing where you just have like mountains of paper piled up around you, and there's no hope, and you're never going to have a day where you kind of stop and clean everything up, and I mean that's sort of been my, I think, experience with organization. It all kind of makes sense to me. I think ultimately it's just kind of a different approach to
mhm.
execution and absorbing, and I don't know. It's just something I like to ask when it comes to just sort of getting to know kind of what we might be collectively, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I actually recently discovered, I don't know, I mean, I haven't been like diagnosed with this, but there's something called Tourettic OCD,
Yeah. Hmm.
which is like a specific, like, because I've always felt like I had some like OCD tendencies, but
Hmm.
a lot of what I would read about it didn't really fit. But yeah, I was looking up like actually Tourettic OCD, and a lot of it seems to fit me with the like, a lot of the hallmarks of that. I don't know if you've heard anything about that specifically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, I have, and that's kind of something that a lot of people have encouraged me to ask more about sort of comorbidities and just other things that seem to kind of orbit a TS diagnosis, whether it's OCD or anxiety or sleep issues.
Mhm.
Have you found over the years that you're getting more relieved with symptoms or tics or anything that kind of comes along with that, or would you say you've kind of had kind of a steady life with it, or getting worse?
Um, I think it's pretty steady at this point.
Yeah,
When I was younger, like everybody told me that this was like a kid's disorder or something, and once
yeah,
you become an adult, you grow out of it. And I was super bummed to find out that is completely false, like
hmm,
100%. um,
yeah.
so I was definitely really bad when I was a kid, but I think it's been pretty steady for several years at this point, where everything's kind of just about at the same level it always is.
Well, so I got to ask, theater, and this is kind of a predictable question here, but are
Mhm.
you ticking when you're rehearsing or performing live, or is it the headspace where you're not bothered by it as much or at all?
Yeah, it's really I'm not bothered by it.
Hmm.
At rehearsal, it's a little different, and then like during notes and things like that.
Sure.
Like I have like a snapping tic, so I'm always like snapping my fingers. And when
Hmm.
once we're done and we're getting notes and things like that, I tend to do that a lot. But
Yeah.
generally, like the only times it's really a big problem when I'm on stage is when I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
If I'm
Hmm.
like in a scene and I'm I'm like quiet in the scene or I'm just sitting there, and then I kind of
yeah.
my mind wanders back to my own self, and that's when I really have problems with it. But yeah, when I'm just, acting and doing stuff, I don't even think about it. It just doesn't happen.
Huh.
So that's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, do you find that to be true in a broader sense when it comes to doing, just some sort of active kind of form of art, with the scrambled peg stuff? Or, I mean, I find that to be true with me for the most part. I mean, there are definitely exceptions, but when it comes to just kind of creative outlets, I definitely feel less bothered.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I guess I don't really think about it when I'm painting, but I probably don't do it as much
Yeah.
or at all. Yeah, that's probably true.
So, we live in the same general neck of the woods, and I've heard from some other people who do as well. I still haven't talked with any of them in person. Do you ever talk with other people who have Tourette syndrome, or just what's your level of interaction with the Tourette community?
I did. I found this I guess Tourette support group recently, or I guess sometime last year. They
Hmm.
meet in Apex on one Tuesday a month,
Okay.
and I went to a few of those. They're pretty small. Sometimes you go and there are two people there or something.
Yeah.
It's a little bit far from me, so I haven't been in a while. But that was cool because yeah, I mean, for most of my life, I didn't really want to talk about it and didn't
Yeah.
I didn't really know anybody else. So yeah, I have been to that. I'm friends with one of the girls on Facebook. She's really cool. She even does some YouTube videos sometimes that I think are really interesting.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, just recently I've met a few people, but in
What
general I don't know a lot.
what made you want to start doing that? 'Cause it
Um
is difficult. I mean, to even talk with other Touretters sometimes. I mean,
yeah.
it's just it can be a sensitive thing, and some people, if they can help it, for any number of reasons, they could be totally private about it, which is completely their right. But they're just, with me, there just came a time where I just really felt like I needed to reach out and connect. I mean, what was your thought process with that?
I'm trying to think, it honestly might have been this podcast. I was
Hmm.
I was kind of starting to think about oh, because it had always been a big secret for me. I don't really tell people that I have Tourette's, but
Hmm.
I was kind of looking into other stuff, and I think I was getting really into podcasts. I found this podcast and I was
Hmm.
like, you know what? Let me start being a little more open about this. And I was,
Oh, that's
searching
amazing.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I found the support group and I was like, let me go to this. And I was really scared to go, but it
Yeah.
was really cool. And I think at this point in time, people are doing a lot of things for just decreasing stigma in general,
Yeah.
mental
Absolutely.
health stigma and all that kind of stuff. So I think just seeing all my friends being really open about, mental health issues and different, disabilities, like just on Facebook and just talking more openly about them
Right.
made me be like, well, I have some of those. Let me
Yeah.
let me share mine. I can be involved in this conversation. So that's been really cool.
So when you went to the support group, what kind of mix of people was it? Because I've heard from some people who say they'll go to a local support group, but it's not really other people with Tourette's. It's just maybe parents of children who just want to learn more and talk about it. And it's obviously not going to be uniform everywhere you go. But what did you encounter when you went to the support group?
Yeah, I think the woman who runs it has a son with Tourette's, and so it's always like she and her whole family are kind of there. And
Right.
then
Yeah.
I did meet a mother who had driven a few hours to bring her three kids, and the youngest one was just diagnosed. And
Wow.
so I spent most of that first meeting I went to talking to her because obviously she had a ton of questions. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, I when I was younger, it's hard. Like I when I was being diagnosed, going to a lot of doctors, I had doctors talking about me right in front of me to other
Yeah.
people,
Hmm.
and I hated that. And so
Yeah. Me
I
too.
was just talking to the mom about, some things she can maybe do to make him feel better and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. I expected to kind of go be supported, and I ended up kind of being the one supporting. I was like, that's really fun. I enjoy that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, so with a new diagnosis, and obviously, she may know the stereotype of it, or may just, have a very abbreviated version of it, and that's okay because that's what people know, until they research more. But so she's going through the process of trying to kind of figure out what's up with her son and what's his place in the world and what can she expect. I mean, what kind of questions did she have for you? Just curious.
I know she had some questions about like him in school, and I don't know a lot of the like technical stuff. Like you need to get some kind of some kind of form for the school so that your kid can have like special
Yeah, like lesson plan
things if
stuff,
he
and
needs
yeah.
it. Yeah. I guess just in general, she just wanted to learn as much as she possibly could about other people who have been there.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's so important. I mean, just did she seem comforted just to be able to talk to another adult who seems to be doing okay?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that she came from so far away. I was like, this is like so important. I love that,
Wow.
you know, I love that she was able to be there. So that was really cool.
So, kind of getting in touch with this stuff, and being a little bit more open about it. So the people you work with, like say on a play or something, are people aware of what you're dealing with?
I don't usually tell people.
Yeah,
I like, it's
and that's totally
pretty
okay.
easy to
Yeah.
mask. People might notice me like snapping a little bit, but
Hmm.
like, yeah, I don't usually tell people, but I've been a little more open on like Facebook and stuff. I've like made a few posts about it in the past.
Hmm.
Then of course it'll be interesting to like, share the podcast episode when that goes up and be like, hey guys. Um, but yeah, I don't have it bad enough that I have to tell people when I'm like meeting a new group of people, like, hey, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
So
sure. And again, it's nobody's business but your own. If you're ready
yeah.
to talk about it, you can. If not, that's fine. So, growing up, when you were young and all that, when did or tics kind of present for you? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was actually pretty severe out of nowhere. We I grew up in Florida and then we moved when I was 8.
Hmm.
And when we moved, I guess, a lot of like stress and all of the changes must have like triggered something because
Sure.
it was all of a sudden when I was like 8 or 9, I started I think my first tick I would say hut. I was like hut all the time.
Hmm.
Um and
Could you connect
obviously
that to
everyone would
anything, or do you know where that came from?
nope.
No,
I
just
mean,
out
I
of
would
the
think
blue.
of it like, the people are playing football and they're like calling out the
Yeah,
like whatever. I don't know
yeah.
where I got it from,
But
but
it's weird. I get that being a tick because there's kind of like an impact to the pronunciation of that, and
yeah.
and that seems to be, I don't know, at least with me, that's sort of the point. If that's, I mean, that's totally the wrong word, but I'm going to say it anyway. The point of my tics, that there seems to be this sense of like impact or just something to satisfy something, and I totally see that being a tick. I mean, I'm probably going to end up doing it now.
Yeah, I've heard like a few other people on the podcast talk about like, they'll pick up other people's ticks and things
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
that. And like if I'm, like reading or there's like a subreddit for Tourette's and stuff, I'll always I have to be really careful how much I go down the rabbit hole of, witnessing other people's because they will become mine. So um yeah, now that I've said that, the hut thing, I'm probably gonna get it back.
I'm
But
sorry.
no, it's not. I really I don't have many vocal tics anymore. So
Well,
um,
back to, when you were sort of noticing this stuff.
mhm,
So you had the hut tick, and were you starting to develop more, like bodily movement? I mean, you've talked about snapping. Is that something that
mhm.
set on kind of early, or?
I think that one is like relatively new.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think mostly they were vocal to begin with. I know for a while I was like blowing air through my lips. I remember doing that at like my sister's communion or something, and my parents or her, I don't know, whatever comes after that.
okay.
I don't
So
know.
blowing through your lips. I just have to ask real quick. Is it kind of like like you're kind of like blowing bubbles almost?
It's like that like
Okay.
like that.
I
Yeah.
I have currently a variation on that, and my wife was doing something on her laptop, or she was showing me something. I was kind of looking over her shoulder, and I was doing that, not even really noticing that I was doing that. But she definitely, she definitely made a point to turn around and ask me whether or not it was a tick.
Yeah. That one was pretty short-lived, luckily, because that, like we have to do that sometimes for theater warm-ups, and it, like, tickles your whole face. I hate doing it. But I remember specifically having that in church while my sister was doing something important and my mom telling me to stop.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I said, I can't stop. And she was like, oh, okay. So that was really good that as soon as I told her I couldn't stop, she was like, oh, never mind. I understand.
So how did they deal with, or do you know, what did you observe, I guess, with your parents when you were young and they were trying to figure out what was up?
I mean, I think they were always pretty supportive, but I don't know. I just think for a while in my childhood, I didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to talk about it. It was just something like, you know, we didn't talk about. And it was mostly me. I just like, I hated it. But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I hated like when I was going to all these different doctors, so they would try to figure out what was wrong with me. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then I'd be sitting with my parents and they'd be talking to my parents about me
Yeah.
right in front of me. And I hated that whole experience with
Yeah.
just people talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm right here. Tell me.
Yeah. I can totally relate.
And like, I know when I was little, I would have like in the beginning of the school year, they would have me leave the classroom and then like, I guess I don't, my parents or a teacher or somebody would go in and tell my whole class what was wrong with me, basically.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I always hated that, especially because I wasn't there, so I had
Yeah.
no idea what they were
You,
saying about me.
yeah, you'd have to walk back in with everybody looking at you and
Yeah, so there was that, and, yeah, I mean, I was never really, like, bullied or anything, but there was always just that weirdness of, like, I'm different and
yeah.
they're talking about me and I don't know what they're saying, and I have to take, like, end of grade tests in the principal's office because I couldn't disrupt the other kids, and
Huh.
there was a lot of that kinda stuff.
Yeah. Well, so at what point did you find art, or some sort of, creative outlet? I mean, was that sort of an outgrowth of that kind of thing? 'Cause, I mean, it definitely was for me.
I don't know, I've always liked doing art. I would, like, take art classes and, in school when there was the opportunity to, but, I don't know, for a while in, like, high school and college, I was doing nail art. I was doing, like, painting my nails with really intricate
Yeah,
little
yeah,
things, and then I guess then I started, painting peg dolls, and I had all of the good, like,
yeah.
detail practice from doing the nail art, and then
Oh, that makes sense.
people were like, "Oh, these are so cool, like, do you have an Etsy?" And I'm like, "I don't know what that is," and then I made an Etsy, and then it just kind of, like, snowballed itself, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, Because like, yeah, and then I'm, like, getting orders and getting, Instagram followers and people being like, "Oh, do you make this?" And it's really kind of just, driving me to keep doing all of that.
right.
So, I guess I've always kinda dabbled in art, but it wasn't until my Etsy shop where it's like, well, now it's like a thing, and I have to keep doing it, so
Was there ever any discussion of medication or anything like that for you, and just exploring ways to give you a sense of relief? And I'm saying that kind of in quotes through the eyes of doctors or parents who just kind of want to resolve what may be up.
Yeah, so when I was diagnosed, I guess it was long enough ago, they pretty much said there wasn't medication for it, or they said, like, there
Right.
is, but it's only for really severe cases, and we're
Hmm.
not gonna give it to you. I've never been medicated, but I'm actually interested in it. I just don't have time to, like, take off from work, spend money, and go to a neurologist, but,
Yeah,
um
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's I've had conversations with other people, just sort of in the course of doing this podcast, interacting with people who, have pointed out maybe the I guess some degree of underdiagnosis when it comes to TS, and that I think could be a big part of it. Is, well, for one, it takes a lot of time to explore. It could be expensive. Some people don't have access to that kind of thing, and it just makes you wonder how many more sort of cases there are out there and how diverse they may be,
Mhm.
kind of a digression, but so how old were you again when you were diagnosed? And I mean, did your parents, do you remember whether they already kind of had an idea of what was happening, or was it anything like that?
I don't know. I was probably around 9. I don't know, I feel like there are some people in my family who might have it, but none of them have been diagnosed.
Yeah.
Like, nothing severe, but I'll occasionally, hear something like a lot of sniffing or a lot of, like, little noises.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I don't think my parents knew anything about it beforehand, but, I don't know, maybe they, looked it up and had an idea. I guess it was around, like 2001, probably.
Right. So you mentioned Tourettic OCD before.
Mhm.
What else are there sleep issues or anxiety or anything else that kind of comes along with Tourette's or anything else you can connect to it?
I was diagnosed with, depression and anxiety. I don't know if it's related or not, probably is.
Hmm.
I don't know what sleep issues are relevant. I always have a really hard time, like, getting up in the mornings.
Oh
I don't
God,
know if
yeah.
that has
Hmm.
anything to do with that. I think it also has to do with the antidepressant I'm on. I read somewhere that it can cause that, and that's kind of a big issue, but,
Yeah.
I don't really have issues, like, going to sleep or staying asleep, so
So with me, when it comes to getting up early, I'm horrible at it because I'm more of a night owl, and
Mhm.
I kind of hate the concept of sleeping anyway. I There's always something I want to be doing, or always something I want to work on. So it's difficult for me to go to sleep because it's difficult for me to kind of pull myself away from whatever it is I'm working on or editing or some creative process. It always comes best late at night, and it kind of feels like a death having to get away from it. Then I wake up in the morning and I'm just completely worn out. I don't eat breakfast because I get up late and then I Zoom. So I have a 35-minute drive in the morning to Raleigh, and by the time I get there, the only thing I've really ingested is coffee, and I'm very bad with mornings. And
yeah.
I feel like if I did have more of an adaptive schedule of, maybe I can start work at 10 a.m. and stop at 7 or whatever, then life would be a little bit more aligned for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I that's complete same with me. I wonder if that's a thing. Although then I have the issue where I do theater at night, so I can't really work any later than I already do. But,
How late into the night does that take you?
oh, theater, like, usually, like, 11 p.m. I'll get home maybe.
Yeah.
So I'll, get up, go to work, come home, change, go to rehearsal. It's a lot.
Yeah, man. What are you working on? Are you active in a play right now?
I was just in a play we just closed last weekend. It was called The Wolves. It's about a girls' soccer team.
Hmm.
It was super fun. Oh my gosh. It's like one of my favorite plays I've worked on so far.
That's cool. So how many plays are you doing a year? I mean, is it a pretty steady thing?
Yeah, it's pretty much pretty steady. Well, if you rehearse for like 2 months before the show, I would say I probably do like at least 6 or 7 a year.
Hmm.
I just had an audition this morning, actually.
Oh yeah. How'd that
Yeah.
go? If I
It
can
went
ask. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I have some conflicts because again, the Etsy store. I had signed up to be a vendor at Carolina FearCon in May, and those 2 dates are like the days they're in tech for that show. So I probably won't get it because I wouldn't be able to be there for tech, which is important. So
Right.
it's hard to balance everything.
Well, so in your office environment, what's that like? And again, this is a totally predictable, generic question, but one I think is important to ask about. Does Tourette's interfere in any way, or is it pronounced? Does it act up? Does stress set it off? That sort of thing.
It's not too bad at work. I definitely do the snapping thing, but I'm lucky because I'm the office admin, so I have my own office right at the front.
Nice, nice.
And I also have like I don't know, they built the building wrong, so the air conditioning when it's on just rumbles the whole wall, so it's like really loud in there.
Oh, perfect.
Um, yeah, right. So like, I mean, it's all really small little things that if you're right down the hall, you wouldn't even hear anyway. So
Right. Yeah.
it's not too bad. I'm also like, I'm sure we all are. I'm really good at masking it. So much almost that like the masking becomes part of the tick
Yeah,
almost.
absolutely. Yeah, I would always mask one of my vocal tics with throat clearing, and then they became inseparable.
Hmm.
It was just that became the tick. That was what I had to execute, and it became kind of twice the labor because I had to do the throat clearing and the vocal tick the right way. And
Yeah.
is that true with you that you have to kind of execute a tick correctly, so to speak, to move on from it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
And like I don't know if you've noticed, I kind of have like a hard like breathing like kind of thing.
I do that too.
Um
Yeah,
yeah, and I sometimes will do that and I'll kind of like laugh along with it,
yeah.
but then
Okay.
it's almost like I don't know if I'm just laughing or if I'm doing the thing, like, because I laugh anyway, so it's hard to tell. But
Does it ever come out at, inappropriate moments where laughing is not the thing to do?
not really, because I can control it enough that I'm not going to laugh when someone, says their grandma died or something. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, like I have a blinking thing, and I'll usually like kind of rub my eye afterwards just to be like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm blinking because there's something in my eye.
Yeah.
But I've noticed really whenever I blink, my hand is going up before I even like realize it. So it's like I
Huh.
blink and then I rub my eye, even though I don't actually have to do that. It's like, I don't know.
So does this stuff bother you?
Um, I mean, I would love not to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, if I would take it or leave it, I would definitely leave it. It's not like something that defines me so much that I'm like, I wouldn't be myself without this. I'm like,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, it's not like it, drives me crazy. Like I can deal with it. It's my life. But yeah, it's not something that I'm like, ooh, I love my Tourette's. So,
Well, I mean, that's another way of saying that, you can still do your thing. I don't know. I'm trying not to be corny with the way I'm saying this, but just that the fact that um you do have that sense of control and command that I think the mother who drove hours to talk to somebody, probably wanted to hear about and learn about and see
mhm,
in person. And
yeah.
I've done a lot of thinking about the question of whether if I could just get rid of my tics, and I always kind of say no just because I always associate other things with Tourette syndrome that I like about myself, to where it's almost sort of like taking medication, where are the side effects gonna outweigh your interest or your benefit in taking that medication? And with me, I think the tics are, some of them really suck, and some of them really, they'll give me headaches, and the neck jerking and the ear popping and all that, and the throat clearing can get really old. But I think I worry what else kind of disappears if those things disappear too. And I'm saying that in a completely uninformed way, except for just what I sense about myself. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, you were saying all this stuff like a lot of us are artistic, or like, if I didn't have this, would I not be as good at other things? Like, I don't know what is me and what is the Tourette's. So
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, I guess it's just all part of me. But if I didn't have that, I don't know how
Yeah.
different I would be. So,
I do directly connect. I think at this point, my Tourette's with my sort of creative side, or my interest in creativity and kind of wanting to kind of master something in the creative arts. And I think it's because there was a lot of retreat when I was a kid, and self-consciousness, and not wanting to be exposed or vulnerable or embarrassed, and doing something that's creative and solitary was kind of a chance to have something that I had real control over, creating something I wanted to see or an outcome that I wanted. And plus you get that sort of simple victory of looking at something you just made and being happy with it. Like that's a really nice sort of, the word escape is really played out, but it is a nice escape from the anxiety part of having TS and the social awkwardness if that exists. And it definitely did for me. So what haven't we hit? There may be some things that I didn't know to ask about, or I mean, if there's just something that people around you wish they knew better about what you deal with Tourette syndrome. Is there anything that comes to mind?
well, I definitely hate the jokes.
Yeah,
Um, I really hate, the whole coprolalia thing. One, I hate jokes about it because that would absolutely suck to deal with, and it's just a horrible thing to make fun of. And I also hate that that's pretty much all people know about Tourette's,
hmm
where you say the word Tourette's and they're like, "Oh," and then they start just like screaming cuss words at you.
yeah,
And it's
hmm
so, God, if there's one thing I could stop in this world, it's Tourette's jokes. And like, I mean, the thing is, maybe there are good ones. Maybe there are good, funny Tourette's jokes, but you're never going to find them because they're all just,
yeah. Maybe if we had more sort of well informed bases for Tourette jokes, but yeah.
yeah.
In the meantime, I mean, it's weird, isn't it, that it's. And I know I've said this on the podcast before, that it's still the disorder that's okay to make fun of. Yeah, almost nothing else is, because people are, somehow able to see or identify with the experience of having whatever it is that you might want to make fun of or whatever syndrome it may be. But TS, is still the one that's still kind of open season on. I guess I kind of sense some of that changing in a way. I don't know. Yeah, I still think that's weird. I'm still taken aback by it, just knowing that so many other things that people deal with would never be okay for even edgy stand-up comedians to do. But TS doesn't have that luxury yet.
Yeah, and they come out of nowhere. You'll just be like hanging out with your friends, and one of them will make a Tourette's joke, and it's like, because they don't even know I have it, and then I don't always want to call them out, but it's like, God, I just
it's almost fantasized into being sort of like a mythical disorder. Just because I think it's just so the typical portrayal may be so difficult to comprehend for someone who does have just complete control over their motor functions and what they do, and they don't have these intrusions to the degree that Tourette syndrome presents, and it is difficult, for the outside to understand. I mean, there are even, very severe tics that I see people do in a way where there's no wind up to it. They, their body will kind of rapidly kind of jerk. And I have very, very, very minor versions of that. But it's, even though I understand the concept of it and I appreciate it, it's hard for me to really understand it, or really appreciate it to the level of the person who's dealing with it. And I don't know if it's just so far the typical portrayal. I don't know if it's so far outside what people are able to comprehend that it just doesn't land in their minds as something that is real. I mean, it sounds so weird to say, and I think I disagree with myself on this, but I'm still trying to think of why it's still kind of okay for people to kind of go in that direction with their humor and other things they might be sensitive to or protective about.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you were saying a second ago, that reading about it, Tourette's, it sounds fake. It's like, how, why can't you just stop doing that? And then it's like, well, we can stop doing it, but not all the time, and it hurts us to stop it. And they're like, what? That's not real. Just stop doing it. Everything you could read about it, if you don't have it, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's like, well, just stop. But obviously we can't just stop. So it is a really weird, interesting disorder. To try to wrap your mind around, especially if you don't have it or haven't witnessed it, because it really does make no sense.
This is something I want to ask listeners to kind of weigh in on, of why do you think that is? I mean, and is it changing? Has it gotten better since the 1990s? Are we seeing more or less of this kind of, parody presentation? I mean, it's and why? And am I wrong? I mean, I could be overthinking that people still see it within their crosshairs as something that's kind of okay to take down and make fun of publicly. I don't know. That's a big curiosity for me. I'd love to know what other people think about that.
Yeah, I'd love to have it more. I mean, generally when I see things about it in the media, I'm weary of them and don't want to see them, but it's probably good. I definitely would love to have more if there was a stand-up comedian with Tourette's who would, talk about it in a funny and interesting way, or more movies, or I'd love a play. Can somebody write a play? I'll be in it.
Do you write as well? I mean, is it pure acting and expression for you, or is this something that you could actually get behind from an author or producer standpoint?
I don't think I'm a writer. I've never really tried it, but that's so far from anything I do. But I mean, I'd love to be involved if anyone wants to come at me with some script things. I'll help.
Thanks so much for listening to Kimmy. Kimmy, thanks for giving us that chance. That was really fun. Check out her stuff too. The web address is scrambledpegs.etsy.com. Scrambledpegs.etsy.com. Thanks again, Kimmy, and everyone listening. Let me go down the list real quick. Tourette'sPodcast@gmail.com. Tourette's Podcast discussion group on Facebook. Thank you, Sophia, our fantastic admin. @Tourette'sPod on Twitter. Tourette's Podcast on Instagram. All past episodes at tourettespodcast.libsyn.com or on iTunes or whatever your favorite listening app is. And finally, patreon.com/Tourette's podcast. That's where you can give voluntary support of the show. We're back next week with a new episode as season 3 carries on. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again soon. This is Ben.